Today we have a real privilege of having an incredible speaker. He's the head of a program, only one of its kind in the United States. It's a master's degree of arts in servant leadership from Viterbo University. Tom Thibodeau is an Institute Associate, the director of the Master of Arts Servant Leadership Program at Viterbo. He's a founding member of the Place of Grace and serves meals to those that need them for 21 years. He said that they just have to make sure that everybody who's serving meals to those that need them just believe that the person coming through the door is Jesus, right? But, you know, but Jesus might have taken a shower this morning, and some of those people didn't, right? So Tom's been married for 37 years, and they met together at a adolescent ministry back in the day, and been married for 37 years. He has 3 adult daughters. He has 2 grandchildren, ages 3 and 9. Tom, we're really happy you're here today. Thanks for coming out. Really appreciate it. Let's give a warm, leading with power welcome in Madison for Tom Thibodeau.
Thank you. I'm reminded these last few days of the words of Jesus. Many are cold, but few are frozen. But isn't it interesting when we gather together and you have the warmth of friendship? Isn't it interesting when you walk into a room and you feel welcome, how our attitude changes and shifts? Isn't it interesting that the only reason that we're able to gather today is because of all the work that people have done that we haven't even met today? Think about that marvelous cup of coffee that you're enjoying right now. I had one myself, very good coffee. Isn't it interesting that somebody was probably here about 7 o'clock this morning, began to brew coffee, and then had to put it in pots and make sure that it gets moved out to this room, a pot on each table. Once we leave today, somebody's going to come in and pick up those pots and bring them all back. But the reason they were able to make coffee this morning is we have clean water here in Madison. Why do we have clean water here in Madison? Because somebody was up all last night at the waste treatment plant making sure that the water quality is drinkable. Not the same case in Flint, Michigan, or many other parts of the world today. And isn't it amazing then you had that clean water to make wonderful coffee? Somebody handpicked those beans in Guatemala or Colombia. So we could just have a hot cup of coffee. All of our lives are built on the service of other people. All those people who serve us each and every day. I am so grateful to be here. I really am. My whole life is just a gift. It's predicated on the service of other people. My parents, my grandparents, all those people have gone before me. I teach at a marvelous university in LaCrosse, Wisconsin, Viterbo University. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, not the brightest crane in the box. And so I'm just so happy to have a job. So happy to have a job. And when I began teaching 34 years ago, I realized who my boss was. And my boss is not the Franciscan sisters who sponsor us, marvelous women, but I don't work for the sisters, I work with them. My boss is not the board of directors, very philanthropic, give us wonderful guidance. I don't work for the board, I work with them. My boss is not our college president. She is incredibly compassionate and competent. I don't work for her, I work with her. My boss is not the academic vice president, oversees my work each and every day. My boss is a lot like your boss, quite honestly. My boss is a farmer in Arcadia, Wisconsin. My boss got up this morning at 4 o'clock in the morning. By 4:30, he's out in the barn milking when it was 10 below. He was out there the other day when it was 20 below. And when he gets done milking, he spends the rest of the day making sure that his animals have fresh crop and water and the water doesn't freeze up. Checks on his machinery. 7 o'clock at night, my boss goes back out into the barn and milks again. And then takes the money from his milk check and pays taxes, insurance. He buys electrical and food for his family with what's left over. He pays tuition for his son or daughter to become a Viterbo graduate, and I ask myself each and every day, is my effort worth that man's sacrifice? All those people who work on our behalf so that we can have the lives that we have, extraordinary. A month ago, I was in San Antonio, Texas, talking to the National Auto Haulers Association. Who would have thought? But just imagine what it's like now to have to recruit people to drive trucks in which they're carrying $1 million worth of merchandise in the back of the truck going across this country, delivering our cars. Extraordinary. And I was talking about the power of service, and the man who convened us went out and talked to the hotel management and got in touch with all the people who are bussing tables, all the cooks, all the people washing dishes, all the people working on the grounds, all the people cleaning rooms, all the people serving drinks, all the people welcoming people at the front desk, all the service people came in. And all the auto haulers who came from backgrounds where their parents were blue collar and did that kind of work all their lives, all the auto haulers stood up on their feet and applauded the people who had served them at this marvelous conference for the last 3 days. And there were tears because people who oftentimes serve are invisible. And they were recognized for the power of their service. And the people who had given thanks, appreciative for the meals that they've been served and the conference that had been provided, they burst into tears because they understood the power of their appreciation on the lives of those who serve. Dr. Martin Luther King, whose birthday we'll celebrate here in 2 weeks, said this: everybody can be great because everybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and your verb degree to serve. You don't have to know the second theory of thermodynamics and physics to serve. You only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love. A heart full of grace and a soul generated by love. Which of us is not capable of that? Which of us each and every day does not have the opportunity to serve other people in their needs? It's extraordinary. Extraordinary. Everybody wants good customer service. All of you in your businesses, you pay all kinds of money to develop people in terms of customer service. Isn't that true? Everybody wants good service. Who chooses to be the servant? Now, I speak to business people all across the country, and it's rather interesting. More in businesses, more than churches, people acknowledge that the greatest leader of all time is Jesus. If a definition of a servant is to inspire, if a definition of a leader is to inspire and influence the lives of other people, there's nobody even in second place in all of human history. The greatest leader of all time is Jesus. And what was his model? Night before he died, he didn't give out a quiz. Matthew, can you tell me the 5 steps of a good miracle? John, you got all the stories of those parables down. Peter, what are you going to do now that you're the rock? None of that. He got out from the table, got a basin of water, got down on his knees, and washed feet. And then he got up and he said, you know what I've just done? You call me teacher and Lord, that's right. But if I, your teacher and your Lord, wash your feet, you are to wash the feet of other people. For what I have done, you are to do. And then he says this: you are blessed if you do it. The blessing of service, of being a servant. And gentlemen, is there anything that's more profound in our marriages, in our families, in our community, than to serve with love? Think about your own mom and your own dad. Doesn't the word servant come to mind? The sacrifice that they made on our behalf so that we could have the lives that we have. Now, my official title that I give myself, I don't mention it in a biography, I'm an ambassador for goodness. Wherever I go, I just remind people how good they are. Wherever I go, Chris, I just got looking at people's faces, and I remind you how important and significant your work is each and every day. Power of goodness. Wherever I go, I am never let down. Wherever I go, I'm meeting good people. I came here this morning, I'm sitting outside with my prayer book, and all these gentlemen came up and introduced themselves and wanted to say, how are you? And they meant it. How are you? It was extraordinary, just the goodness in this room. You felt it as you walked in, didn't you? Now, January 7th, 2015. I'm at the Kalahari getting ready to speak to 300 farmers. And as they're introducing me, my pocket goes off. I pull out my smartphone. That year I got a smartphone for Christmas. I don't know how to use it, but I got one. All of us in our 60s, we have smartphones. We don't know how to use it, but we got them. Why? We're hoping to get pictures of our grandchildren. Those of you who are younger men and you have grandchildren, send pictures to your parents. That's why they got these smartphones. We don't know how to use it. That's why I was going to the younger people. Can you help me with this app thing? And all of a sudden, my wife's talking to me. Priscilla, how'd you get in there? Tom. Megan was on her way to work in downtown Chicago today. The water broke. She's in downtown Chicago having her first granddaughter, 6 weeks premature. Her husband's in the northern suburbs. My daughter's in the hospital that she didn't intend being in, and she's giving birth to our first granddaughter, 6 weeks premature. My wife's at home just frantic, not knowing what to do. And here's our speaker, Tom Thibodeau. Come on, I gotta go. Put her back in my pocket. Well, you can imagine I'm standing in front of the farmers, and I'm a little bit distressed. I'm a little bit distracted. I said, listen, this is what's going on in our life right now. My daughter's going to work today in downtown Chicago. The water broke. She's in an emergency room giving birth to our first granddaughter, 6 weeks premature. My wife's at home not knowing what to do, and my son-in-law's in the northern suburbs of Chicago. My daughters are by herself. That's what's going on in our life right now. And you know, once I said that, I felt a wave of compassion that kind of came out of the audience. All those good people sitting there were now thinking about me and my family, and they were thinking about their own families at that moment. If I would have continued on, not said anything, they would have said, well, the guy's distressed, he's distracted, he doesn't really want to be here. But once I told them the truth, isn't it amazing once we tell other people the truth about ourselves that they're going to cut us slack? We don't have to pretend all the time that we got it together. In fact, we're much more lovable when we make ourselves vulnerable. And then I went on, I gave the speech, I walked off the stage. At the bottom of the stage, there's a guy about 5'10" with shoulder like axe handles, got a blue shirt on. Larry, come here, he says, and he hugs me. This is unusual behavior for farmers. And then he won't let me go. He holds onto my waist, pulls out his wallet, said, look at that, there's my granddaughter. 5 years of age, full of life. She was born 6 weeks premature. Your granddaughter can be just fine. I'm praying for you and your family. Did I need that at that moment? Hello, brother. Hello, fellow human being. Got your back. Isn't that what good friends do? Isn't that the definition of a servant? Isn't that what it is to be a leader? Got your back. But to show you how it goes around, 6 months later, I'm in Dubuque speaking to another group of farmers. No kidding, right now I'm on the farm circuit. They consider me to be a moving speaker. Well, anyway, I'm telling a story about Larry. They say he's here. In the middle of 300 farmers, he's waving at me. They say, are you going to hug him? I said, you bet I am. Well, we've seen each other at the LaCrosse Dairy Breakfast, the Vernon County Dairy Breakfast, the professional dairy producers that meet down at the Alliant Energy Center. And every time we see each other, come here, brother, and we've become friends. And last time I saw him, he said, now, brother, it's your turn. My wife's health is failing. I need your prayers. Isn't it true, gentlemen, that we reap what we sow? If we are good and kind and generous, that comes back to us. If we are mean and bitter, sarcastic, judgmental, that comes back to us as well. Sow a thought, reap an action. Sow an action, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap a character. Sow a character, reap a destiny. So each and every day, the act of service, every act of service counts. Our lives are predicated on that kind of work. In 1970, Robert Greenleaf was the vice president of AT&T Corporation, the largest corporation in the world at that time. Writes his first pamphlet on the servant as leader. Greenleaf, for all those years at AT&T company, just paying attention. He had 14 PhDs working under him. They had the second large frame computer produced by IBM in order to track in terms of their management data. And what does he find out? That the most effective, the most ethical leaders in all of AT&T were people who were defined as servants. So he writes this amazing article, which has now become the basis of it, the servant as leader. What was interesting is that from 1970 to 2004 on Google Informatics, there's no movement, the servant as leader. Nobody's talking about it. 2008, it goes up. 2004, it goes up a little bit. 2008, it jumps off the charts. What happens back in 2008? The collapse of the markets. What do we understand this? We understand this very, very clear today, sir, gentlemen. There is a clear difference between servant leaders and self-serving leaders. Servant leaders and self-serving leaders. Self-serving, I go to an organization, I go to an institution, because I want privilege, power, and prestige. You're here to serve me. Servant leaders, I go because I'm committed to the growth and development of other human beings. What is it I can do to serve you? What is it I can do to help you to become a better human being in the process? Do you know who understood that? Mother Teresa. Now, I just mentioned the name of a woman who's been dead for 20 years. They don't give out vitals on nuns. How tall do you think she was? I bet she wasn't 5 foot. How much do you think she weighed? I bet she wasn't 80 pounds. What did she own? 2 dresses, both the same, blue and white. And yet when I mention her name, everybody in the room knows what I'm talking about. At age 80, she's in the hospital for exhaustion. Wouldn't you love to be in the hospital for exhaustion at age 80? She comes out, and the first thing they ask her is, Mother, what's your greatest challenge? She says, my greatest challenge are parking spaces. Parking spaces? Parking spaces. I send the sisters away to get their degrees in medicine. They come back, they all want their own parking space. So I have to send them to the house of dying and get them straightened around. What did she understand? That you're here to serve, not to be served. It isn't amazing. All of our lives are predicated on all those people who serve us. Think about it in terms of these last cold days. All those people who are willing to get out in trucks and unthaw people's pipes. All those people who are jumping cars. All those people who got in an assault truck this morning at 3 o'clock in the morning who are out making sure that the roads are clear so that you and I could drive here safely today. Do you know how long it takes somebody to join where they're going to go to college? 7 minutes. 7 minutes. You only get one chance to make a great first impression. Isn't that true? You think about it in terms of your own businesses. Who do you have at the front door? Somebody's going to make a great first impression. Is that not true? And so what happens, you always recognize who are those people. So if you wanted to go to look at Viterbo University today, people would get up in Madison, drive 2.5 hours, get to LaCrosse, Wisconsin, on the west coast there of Wisconsin, and they'd be looking for the place, trying to find the signage, not easy to find. Then you drive in, is there a parking space for visitors? Are you welcome? Then you walk to the front doors. What does it look like when you walk to the front doors? And then because you're drinking coffee for 2.5 hours, you look for the nearest bathroom. And then what do you pay attention to? Does that stink? You're not sending your kid to a college where the bathrooms stink. Is there soap in the dispensers? Are there towels? Then you go out and you meet a 20-year-old student who gives you a tour of the campus, and with 7 minutes, you make a determination whether or not you're going to spend thousands of dollars on a college education. The reason I have a job, the reason I have the privilege of teaching, Wayne's a custodian in the building. You go to Viterbo this morning, you see a 1996 Astro van in the parking lot. Wayne got up at 4 o'clock this morning. He delivers papers for the LaCrosse Tribune. As a custodian, in order to make a little extra money, he has 2 part-time jobs. And you go to there this morning, and there'd be Wayne. He'd have his wastebasket. He had the tools of the trade for cleaning toilets and wiping off whiteboards. And when you walk in, the first thing he does is give you knuckles. Be strong. Be strong. It's like, power on, Wayne. Then he goes up and says, be strong. Today's a good day, tomorrow will be better. 2 years ago, a young man's graduating. He gets up on stage and says, he's the graduation speaker, says, when I came here, I'm a small kid from a small town, and I'm terribly homesick. And for 2 years, Wayne kept telling me, be strong. Today's a good day, tomorrow will be better. I'm graduating today because of Wayne. Thank you, Wayne. Everybody cheered. Not everyone knows college president, but everyone knows Wayne. Now, here's a Wayne story. On the last day of classes, a young man has 32 ounces of Mountain Dew, takes a sip, puts the top on lightly, runs up 3 flights of stairs, gets to the top stair, trips. The Mountain Dew flies out of his hand, hits the wall, hits the floor, the top comes off, Mountain Dew sprays all over the landing, starts rolling down the treads. Wayne, I'm sorry, man. He said, I didn't mean to spill it, man. Wayne's response, thanks for telling me when it's wet. A lot easier for me to wipe up when it's wet than when it's dry. Get back up to class. Young man gets back up to class, and Wayne gets to work. And he wipes off the walls, he wipes off the landing, he wipes off the treads, he goes down to the vending machine, gets another 32-ounce bottle of Mountain Dew. Goes up to the classroom door. Young man sees him. The young man comes over and he says, here, I thought you'd be needing this. Now you tell me, does Wayne make Viterbo University a better place to teach at? Does Wayne make his neighborhood a better place? Does Wayne make the LaCrosse community a better place? Yes. Be strong. Today's a good day, tomorrow will be better. Talk with each other. Who's your Wayne? Talk with each other. Who's your Wayne? Audience participation. Who's your Waynes? All right, if I can interrupt, please just shout out their name. Who's your Wayne? Just shout out their names. Who's your Wayne? Pastor. Who? Dylan. All right, who's your Wayne? My wife. Your wife. Who's your Wayne? The man over there, Doug. Doug. A friend? Father. What's really significant is this. Do the Waynes in our life know how significant they are to us? Do we tell them on a regular basis? A study that was concluded in 2014, 10-year study, found out this, that if you do good work on a regular basis and are ignored, it's more painful than to be bullied or harassed. If you do good work on a regular basis and it's ignored, it's more painful than be bullied or harassed. Why? If you bully and harass me, at least you're paying attention. So how important is it for us to recognize those people who provide that kind of service to ourselves? Service is love made visible. Service is love made visible. Think about it for just a moment. What percentage of the American population works on a farm today? 1.5%. What percentage of the American population serves in the American military? 1%. 2.5% of us feed and protect us. And how often do we take their service for granted? I just got done with the servant leadership program with the LaCrosse Police Department. 1/3 of all police officers experience severe trauma their first year on the job. By the end of 3 years, 85% have experienced severe trauma. Can you imagine what it is being a public servant? Can you imagine what it is walking into dangerous situations oftentimes? And can you imagine what it's like not to be appreciated but rather be criticized for the work that you do? And yet these men, dedicated to serve and protect. Good work, hard work, noble work, our work. Now, how do we do this? How do we do this? Well, one of the ways in which we do it is exactly what you're doing here. The people who gathered us together for Leading with Power. I met Keith Tompkins when he first had the idea. He was up in LaCrosse at a meeting that I was speaking at, and he said, we're going to get this group together called Leading with Power. Do you want to speak? And I said, sure. And then, by golly, about 6 months later, we're having a meeting. It's our second meeting. We'd like you to come. And so I drove up, and he had gathered this group of men together. Why is this so significant, gentlemen, our being here together? There's very few places where men come together and build relationships. The real power of what this is the relationships and the friendships that you form with one another. Most men are terribly lonely. Study, when they asked men, if you had a crisis in the middle of the night, who would you call? 85% of all men did not have anybody they could call. If their wife wasn't there, they had nobody to call. We have buddies, people that we might share fantasy football or go hunting with, but how many real friends do we have where we join with each other? Terribly important. The sense of a community, a place where you belong and believe. And why is it so important that we gather together here now as men in middle ages and a little older? Is because young men need us more than ever before. The most startling statistic that I can share with you is this. Last year in America, 47% of all birth certificates did not have a man's name on them. How important it is to be significantly involved in the lives of the young. I don't know of a vocation that's more important than being a father and a grandfather. And do you know what's really amazing, Nick? For a lifetime, people will tell you what a great worker you are. They will acknowledge you and award you for what you produce. But very seldom do we say to each other, I really admire you, Jacob, because you're such a good father. Thank you, Chris, for being such a wonderful grandfather. You're a model husband. The things that are really important are those relationships that are so significant. Now, you want to think about it for just a moment. The next generation of people who are going to work in our organizations, the next generation of leaders, how are they being formed? If they do not have caring adults and engaged in their lives in a meaningful way. Tony Dungy, in his book, The Mentor Leader, says this: the most significant work in America today is to be involved in a meaningful way in the lives of a young person. helping them to grow and to develop, teaching them how to serve and how to lead. I'm watching CBS this morning 2 years ago, and I saw my new hero, 9 years of age. In January, he's walking through the parking lot of our Cracker Barrel. He looks down, he sees a bill peeping out of the snow. He picks it out, it's a 20. His mother comes over, and she looks over, and there's nobody else around. She says, well, I guess it's yours. What would you like to do with it? Oh, he said, could I buy my own pizza tonight? Well, maybe you could. Could I buy an app for my new game? Well, maybe you could. So they sit down, they're having breakfast, and the young boy looks across, and he sees a man, a soldier, eating by himself, wearing camouflage. The young boy takes his placemat and rips it in half and writes, Dear soldier, I found this $20 bill in the parking lot. I want you to have it. Thank you for your service. My dad was killed in Iraq. Signed, a Gold Star child. He walks over to where the man is sitting, puts down the placemat and the $20 bill, steps back and salutes. He goes back to his mother's table and said, Mom, I'd like to visit Dad today alone. His father was killed when he was a baby. They drive to the cemetery. The little boy gets out of the car, walks through the snow, is hugging his father's tombstone. His mother takes a picture, posts it on Facebook. In 7 weeks, that mother and child raised $250,000 for Gold Star children. Everybody in the platoon wants to give the young boy the $20 back. He said, it's not for me, it's for other children. I see situations like that. I'm saying, man, Thibodeau, you're playing way too small. What more could we be doing? Now, what's really amazing, Steve Hartman does a follow-up story this summer. There he is again at the VFW National Convention. All grown up at 11 years of age, wearing a shirt and tie and his dad's dog tags. And the VFW was giving him a National Honor Award because in the last 2.5 years, they've raised $2.5 million for Gold Star children. Service is love made visible. If service is beneath you, leadership is beyond you. Let me say that again. If service is beneath you, leadership is beyond you. You mentioned Paul Christ. Why is he such a good coach? Because he's a good man. Dick Bennett, who revived Wisconsin basketball. And remember when we went to the Final Four? Not any one of the Badgers even made second team. Honorable mention. Dick Bennett's a good friend of my brother's. He said, all you need is for one coach to mention your name. None of my kids even made second team all conference. They went to the Final Four. And that year during practice, they all wore a t-shirt and had one word on it. Serve. A no-name group of young boys restored Wisconsin basketball because that year, what did they do? They served each other. Now, how do we do our service? Only 2 ways. Only 2 ways. And by the way, these are only 2 ways that Jesus had. The 2 human capacities that Jesus had, you and I have. One of them is not PowerPoint. Notice I don't have a PowerPoint. You have no power, have no point. I teach at a college. I've stand outside of a college classroom and never heard anybody, oh, wow, where'd you get that slide? Whew, never seen so much good information in all my life. Technology doesn't change people's lives. The 2 ways in which you and I positively influence and inspire the lives of other people are our words and our presence. Our words and our presence. With one word, I can lift somebody up or I can tear them down. With one word, I can honor somebody or I can humiliate them. The power of our language. Words are as powerful as love. They stay with us for a lifetime. If you lost your parents, you never forget the last words your mom or dad said to you. On the other end of the spectrum, some of us have never been back to our high school reunion because of what people said to us in our junior year. The power of our language. I ask every audience I speak to, would you want to be in middle school right now? Would anyone like to go back to middle school right now? See, when we were in middle school, there was always kind of somebody who was a bully. We all know who the names are. None of us like them. But what's really interesting today in middle school, you're not only bullied at school, you're bullied online. Parents are coming into the guidance counselor's offices crying, not knowing how they can protect their children because the language has become so rude and crude. Is that not true? How about our civil discourse, the way in which we talk to each other privately and publicly? Is it done with respect and reverence? Are we lifting people up? or if we got into a terrible habit in this country, we start arguing with each other before we start to understand each other. The power of our language. The way in which we speak to and with each other. We shape our lives, we shape our organizations by the things that we talk about. You want to know what's important in a family? You want to know what's important in a company? Sit in the employees' lounge. Listen to what people really have to say and what's really significant in their lives. The power of our conversations. Do you realize to be in a healthy relationship with another human being, you need 5 comments of appreciation, every one of criticism? Did you give your 5 already today? Did you get your 5 today? How often do we appreciate people? Thank you. I appreciate your effort. Thank you for gathering us together for this meeting. Thank you for making Leading with Power possible here in Madison. The power of appreciation. Anybody here dying too much appreciation? Anybody here getting way too much affirmation? Oh, just stop with all that recognition, will ya? Of course not. We all need to be appreciated. Now, we're talking about this in our master's program. And a guy comes back 2 weeks later. We have class on Friday night and Saturday. He comes back and he says, Tom, he started talking about appreciation, him right between the eyes. He said, I've been married for 25 years, and I'm sitting there, I'm thinking how little appreciation I've showed my wife. As you talk about appreciation, it's becoming painful. My wife pretty much raised the kids by herself. She took care of all the dental appointments, the medical appointments, back to school appointments. My wife does the grocery shopping. My wife does the cooking. She does the laundry. She cleans the house. My wife pays the bills. My wife organizes our social life. She takes care of the kids' transportation needs. My wife organizes the holidays, keeps in contact with the extended family. I have my job. I have my buddies. I go hunting and fishing when I want to go hunting and fishing. I do the lawn. And I realize that I've shown so little appreciation to all the work that my wife has done these last 25 years. Well, the reason I got involved in this course is because I wanted to change. So on the way home, I stopped and I got a card. Midweek, I wrote in the card how much I loved her, how much I appreciate her, and I apologized for not having been more invested in doing the work around the house. I said I can do better to improve our marriage. He said I left the card on her pillow, went to work. That night, I ran the scoreboard at a high school basketball game. I came home at 9:30 at night. My wife's sitting at the kitchen table, the card's in front of her unopened, and she's crying. I said, what's wrong? You haven't opened the card. She said, I don't need to. Why is that? He said. I know what's in it. What's in it, he asked. You're leaving me, aren't you? What was she supposed to think? You never told her. No, I don't know what women's experience is. I really don't. I've been married for 37 years. My wife is looking at me and says, you don't understand me. I say, you're exactly right. I don't. I pretend, but I don't. Women don't understand men's experience either. Isn't that true? Women say, well, what are you thinking? You say, nothing. No, you got to be thinking something. No, really, I'm not. It's the truth. But here's the greatest pain. I've been working with men for the last 40 years in the church and the community. Greatest pain in the life of a man, never having heard his father say, I love you. What are you waiting for, the eulogy? Why are we withholding our appreciation, our love? Why is it we can't tell each other? So many young men. You can go to any school. The kids that they have those problems with do not have a significant, meaningful relationship with a man in their life. The importance of our language. So look for the good stuff. Whatever you pay attention to, you get more of. Look for the good stuff. And I got to tell you a news story. Some of you have heard me speak before. This is a new one. Just happened yesterday. On New Year's Day, it was kind of cold, and for my wife and I were kind of stuck inside for 2 days, and we were getting a little housebound. I said, let's go for a ride. So we got bundled up and went for a drive in LaCrosse. Not a big drive in LaCrosse, but we went for a ride, and then we were going outside of town. I said, well, here, let's turn around. And I turned around in the Walmart parking lot, and I'm standing there. We're sitting there at the parking lot, and the guy rear ends me. My wife looks at me and says, got any more great ideas? So the new year begins. An older gentleman gets out. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I said, well, Hey, listen, accidents happen. And the guy's distraught. And he's looking through his wallet. Here's my insurance card. Here's my insurance card. He said, no, he said, I don't know if you got that much damage. Listen, I'll just pay for it. He said, don't worry. I'm retired. I got plenty of money. Okay. And he said, here, do you got a piece of paper? And I said, yes. And I said, what's your name and what's your phone number? And he gave me his name and his phone number. And he said, what's your name and your phone number? And I gave him my name, my phone number. I said, well, listen, he said, I'll call you tomorrow at noon. Go get yourself an I estimate in the morning, I'll call you at noon. And so we're driving. I said, you didn't take a picture, you didn't call the. I said, no. He said he'd call me. Yesterday at noon, I get a call. Listen, I don't know where you live. He said, I'm parked in a Kmart parking lot. He said, right out in the middle. He said, I got your money. I said, well, the estimate's $900. He said, I got that for you. So I drove over, and he gets out, and he shakes my hand. He just shakes my hand. Thank you. Thank you. He said, do you know how rare it is that anybody ever trusts you anymore? Thank you. He says, here's your money. And I put an extra 50 in there. Take your wife out for supper on me. Good stuff. Good stuff. The world is not going to hell in a handbasket. Good people are serving and working and encouraging and building each other up all the time. What's our role? To be those people. Pay attention to the good stuff. And when good stuff happens, what happens, Chris? You can't help but tell somebody. Has anybody ever shot a 14-point buck in the state of Wisconsin and kept it to themselves? My brother goes turkey hunting up in Amish country. He shoots the turkey, throws it in the back of his pickup, and goes on parade. He's showing the Amish. Of course, they can't tell anybody, but he's got to show somebody. The last Thursday of January, 10 years ago, I was in Appleton speaking to a group of terrible alumni about the good stuff happening at our campus. Now it's 8 o'clock at night. All I've had to eat are hors d'oeuvres. I have to go to Fond du Lac to another presentation the next day. So I haven't had any supper, and I don't know where I'm going to stay. I'm walking through the lobby of the Paper Valley, and I bump into a gentleman. Excuse me, sir. Mark! Tom! It's my brother Mark. He's a year younger than I am. He's a district attorney of Adams County. I hope none of you have ever met him. I said, what are you doing here? He said, I'm here at the State DA convention. He said, what are you doing here? I said, I was going to talk for Viterbo. I said, what are you doing now? He said, I was going to go to Subway and get a sandwich. I said, we're old enough. Let's go to the tavern. So we went in, we sat down at the tavern. We ordered a sandwich and a beverage. He said, where are you staying tonight? I said, I don't have a place to stay. He said, why don't you stay with me? State's already paid for room. I got a king-size bed if you don't mind staying with me. Not at all, I said. So I went and got my stuff, came up to his room. We're talking for a while. It was time to go to bed, so we both got up, took our medication, that time of life. Hop in bed with each other. He hits the lights, and instantly, we're 12 and 11 again. The last time we slept in the same bed, we were 12 and 11. We're laughing, we're giggling, we're snorting. Just like 12 and 11-year-old boys do. And then he starts talking about our grandmother, Florence. In 1937, my grandfather was hit and killed by a trolley car in Milwaukee, leaving my grandmother with 5 children under the age of 11. She's a single-parent businesswoman in the midst of depression. 51st and Center in Milwaukee. Her apartment was above her shop. She'd get up in the morning, feed the older 4, give them over care to the 11-year-old, take the baby down to the shop, begin cutting hair. At 10 o'clock, she'd stop and she'd nurse her baby, my aunt. And a friend of hers who had given birth to twins was not strong enough, so the father brought the twins down. My grandmother nursed 3 babies at 10, at noon, at 3, and 5, and then went upstairs and took care of her children. We're talking a strong woman here. And when I was growing up in Wisconsin Rapids, my mother was not in good health. Grandma came for a week every summer. And she organized and cleaned and sewed and did things my mother was not able to do. 5 o'clock at night, she'd go upstairs, get herself ready for the evening, came down for supper, and taught us how to make a brandy old-fashioned sweet. Taught us how to play sheephead. And then she gave us good cards because she wanted us to win. She wanted the best for us. When my brother went to law school, he lived with my grandmother. He'd come home at 11 o'clock at night to be a plate warming in the oven. We talked about our mom and our dad. Dad's been dead for 17 years now. Mom's been gone for 12. We talked about our uncles and aunts. We talked about our cousins. We talked about our brothers and sisters. We talked about our wives. We talked about our children. We talked about the good work that we've been given to do these last 50 years. And in the dark of the night, we were reminded we've been loved for a lifetime. The good stuff. The good stuff. With the person sitting right next to you, what's some of the good stuff in your life right now? With the person sitting right next to you, what's some of the good stuff in your life right now? All right, because our time is growing short, just kind of interrupt. What'd you become aware of as people today again talking about good stuff? What'd you become aware of in yourself, the person that you talked to in this room? What did you become aware of as people talked about good stuff? We all got it. Positive attitude. What else? Don't do it enough. What do we see on each other's faces? Okay. What do we see on each other's faces? Emotion, joy. There's a level of connectivity. Smiles. And what do we find out? There's always more good stuff. Pay attention to the good stuff. Now, all of us are leaders in our families, in our communities, in our jobs, in our businesses. Whatever the leader pays attention to, that's what everybody else in the organization pays attention to. That's why they call it the good news. Pay attention to the good stuff. Here it is, folks. Cynicism is not a virtue. You ever seen a hospital built by a group of cynics? And we've raised that up, that if I'm critical of everyone and everything, the only thing that changes any situation is when good people get together and do good work. Do you know of another way? That's what leading with power is. Good people getting together and doing good work. It's the good stuff. The second way in which you and I have an impact on each other's lives is just by our presence. Chris, thank you very much. You've made this presentation today. You sat here in front. You've paid attention. You've made eye contact. And I could just see your level of encouragement. Isn't that true? When you go to a meeting, don't you kind of find that there's somebody in the room that you kind of pay attention to? Don't you find people then when they kind of just turn off? And this is why, in terms of how difficult it is, when people don't pay attention. In fact, the greatest gift we give to another human being, by the way, is our attention. And think about how rare that is. How often are we talking to somebody and their pocket goes off? Or here, let me take this. What have I just communicated to you? You're not very important there, and here you are, paying full attention. The power of our presence. The power of our presence. Now, that's our relationship, just in here this last 50 minutes. If I start hacking, coughing, and sneezing, how long are you expecting to sit here? Not very long at all. Why? You wouldn't want to get sick. What if I'm bitter, sarcastic, cynical, judgmental? What's that like for him to be with me each and every day? Worse than being sick. It's the power of our presence. The power of our presence. Isn't it amazing? So often when a friend is going through a difficult time, you have no words. You have no explanation. But when people are going through a difficult time, what do they want more than anything else? Not to be left alone. Dave Scogan, Festival of Foods out of LaCrosse, for their managers. Weddings, optional. Funerals, mandatory. What's it like to be part of a company in which your mom or dad dies and your manager is there? Just show up. Our time is running short. You're paying way too much attention. I'm a college teacher. I haven't spoken to a group that's been this attentive since the last week of October. So I have to quit because you got things that are more important to do. But let me conclude with two stories. The first one you're going to have a hard time believing. I went to college to play college football. All right, my chest has moved to my waist. I wasn't what you call a great college football player. My nickname was Charmin. I went to St. John's University in Collegeville, Minnesota, and I played for the winningest football coach in college football history, John Glardy, at St. John's. He just retired 5 years ago at age 85. But when we got there in 1969, he looked at all of us and says, listen, you guys, none of you going to the NFL. You're not here to play football. You're here to get a college education. You got that? Yes, coach. How can you study at night if you're beating each other during practice? Therefore, no blocking or tackling. You got that? Yes, coach. I checked the scorecard. You don't get points for practice. You heard somebody in practice, you answered me. You got that? Yes, coach. One other thing, up here in central Minnesota, we don't have a lot of daylight. We don't have time for that nonsense in terms of calisthenics and wind sprints. You want to play in this team, you keep yourself in shape. You got that? Yes, coach. I'm thinking to myself, non-violent aerobic football. I can do this. After 5 days, I realized I'm not going to play very much. So I call home and I tell my dad I'm not going to play very much. He said, well, if you want to quit, quit. It's your choice. Why don't you think you're going to play? I said, well, these Minnesotans are all bigger, faster, and stronger than I am. Well, If you want to quit, quit. Like I said, you earn that. But if you stay in a team, I demand this. If you stay in a team, you show up every day and give 100%, because if you don't, you're taking away from the effort of others who want to be successful. Probably the best advice I've ever got in my adult life. If you're going to be on the team, show up every day and give 100%, because if you don't, you're taking away from the efforts of wanting to be successful. Whether it be my marriage, whether that be parenting, whether that be my jobs and my responsibilities, just show up every day. And so I did. Without the prospect of playing very much, I showed up for the next 4 years. Need someone to play defensive tackle? I jumped in. Need someone to catch punts? I caught punts. Need someone to help the trainers pick up cups? I picked up cups. Everybody got to dress for home games. 100 guys, 3 number 10s. One game they all got in. Have no idea, but one game all 3 number 10s got in. I played twice. Once my sophomore year, once my senior year. My junior year, I just about got in. My friends came and started cheering for me. We want Thibodeau. We want Thibodeau. Go ahead and say, hey, Thibodeau. I said, yeah, coach, go see what they want. That was my career. Now, I don't know why they did this. I don't know. But when Ghilardi became the winningest football coach in college football history back in 2003, Sports Illustrated sent a reporter to Collegeville, Minnesota to cover this quirky coach. Now, I don't know why they did this. I really don't, Chris. But they chose a picture when I was on a team in 1970. I never played. I'm in Sports Illustrated. Look at that, number 17. Number 7, look at that. Look at it. No, don't clap. I never played. Look at that. Look at that. Look, there's no scrapes on my helmet. Look at my pants. They're completely white. They didn't have to put them in the laundry. Just put them back in the rack. I never played, and I'm in Sports Illustrated, and all I did was show up. You never know. See, what's amazing is this. We can't have a gathering unless people are willing to show up. People made sacrifices. People made choices. You'll work another hour into the evening tonight because you chose to be here. And you chose not just for yourself. You chose for each other. You chose for your families. You chose for the Madison community. You believe, and I believe, that all of us are called to serve and to lead. All of us are called to contribute and to make other people's lives just a little bit better. Leadership is who you are. Management is what you do. Gentlemen, you are good men, noble men, sacred men. And the world needs us more than ever before. My last story. Thank you for inviting me. It's always a privilege to speak. We don't get this hour back. It's just such a privilege to be in a group like this, to be able to talk about matters of the heart, what we might be called to give thanks for all those who have gone before us. I think on a cold day like today, when I think about, I should have saved more. My grandfather would have said, you mean to tell me you had hot water all winter? Think about it in terms of 2 generations ago, the sacrifices that they made so that we can have the luxury that we enjoy. So it's always a privilege. And I got invited to Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio 2 years ago. Brooke Army Medical Center is where wounded warriors from Iraq and Afghanistan go for their prosthetics. How many of you have sent family members to Iraq and Afghanistan these last 30 years? Just a show of hands, how many have gone or served? Thank you so very much. When we send a soldier, we send a family. When we talk about deploying 15,000 more soldiers, we're talking about 15,000 more families, a sacrifice that people make on our behalf. So they said, well, send just somebody to the airport to pick you up. So I got all dressed up like a speaker, had my shirt and tie on, had my overcoat on. It was in March. I had my draped over my arm. I had my vertebral bag by my feet, hoping somebody would recognize me. I was rather odd standing there. It was 95 degrees in the San Antonio airport. Everybody else was in shorts and T-shirts. Finally, a guy in flip-flops walks up and said, did you just get off the plane from Minneapolis? I said, yes. He says, looks like it. He said, are you Tom? I said, yes. He says, looks like it. Follow me on your ride. But as I was standing in the airport, I was watching people, and I saw a young man, 21, 22 tops, hair cut short, wearing a gray T-shirt with Army emblazed across his chest. He had on a blue pair of shorts. And because he was in T-shirt and shorts, I could see his right arm was missing. His left leg was a metal prosthetic. His left hand was on the handle of a stroller, and with great difficulty, he's trying to push his infant son, but he couldn't get the stroller to go where he wanted it to go, and he was becoming frustrated. And then a young woman, 21, 22 tops, who I imagine just a year previously had said, in sickness and health, in good times and bad, till death do us part I do, walked up to her husband, put her arm around his waist, put her right hand on the handle of the stroller carrying their son, smiled and said with love, let's push together. It's just too hard pushing alone. Let's push together. It's just too hard pushing alone. I could have given you more theory about servant leadership. I could have given you all kinds of management articles from the Harvard Business Review. But I couldn't have given you a better image than that young couple. Gathered with a commitment to each other for the good of their son. Let's push together. It's just too hard pushing alone. Servant leadership, good work, hard work, noble work, sacred work, our work. Let's continue to do it well together. Thank you.